Hello everybody, welcome to Oscar Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and drop a like on this video. I believe the channel is already at 80k, so let's say 130k by the end of the year. That's the goal. First post-game recap in what feels like a goddamn month. Talking about Klay Thompson's return, and I'm also going to briefly talk about the Bulls game, but I have little to say, so it's not going to be a long time. That's what briefly means. And also, I'm probably going to start getting back into doing post-game recaps with all the players out with health and safety protocols. It really made watching the NBA graining and wasn't really worth doing. Things are starting to get back into order, and I think teams are not having to deal with it as much, and it's not as prominent as it was like a month ago. So hopefully things can be returning a little bit more to normal, and that means watching basketball will be fun again. Watching basketball was very fun today because the Warriors played the Cavaliers, and that doesn't normally seem like it'd be a big deal unless it's 5 years ago, but Klay Thompson's back after, I believe the stat was 941 days. After 941 days, Klay Thompson is back and playing basketball, and his return was magical. Now, he didn't play a crazy amount of minutes, which was to be expected. He only played about 20 minutes, but in those 20 minutes, he scored 17 points. Now, efficiency was not the best. So, you know, it wasn't an amazing performance relative to a normal Klay Thompson performance, but relative to the fact that we haven't seen him play since I was a teenager, that's definitely good. Yes, I was a teenager in 2019. Not going to bother doing the whole age joke thing, but people are going to be like, wow, Klay Thompson hasn't played since the 40s. Yeah, it's hilarious. But 17 points, 7 for 18 from the field, 3 for 8 from outside, hit a couple of pull-up mid-range shots. He did take a couple of shots that were just straight up bad. Oh, we got a fucking poster dunk? I don't even remember. I remember to say that. That should have been the first thing I said. He did a crossover on, it was either Mobley or Jared Allen on the perimeter, went by them, and then dunked on two defenders. It was his second bucket of the game. It was fucking wild that he did that because, you know, we expect the jump shot to be there, and to some extent we expect the defense to at least be solid. His defense was actually pretty damn good today, which is very scary. But he dunking on people, that's not even something he did a lot when he was healthy. So he looks very healthy now. I mean, that's like a dunk. That's about as good as it gets in terms of showcasing that he is physically there. As I mentioned, the defense was there. That was another thing that I had to keep an eye out on because that's the one thing I feared would be lost with not playing basketball in 900 days, and the fact that he's injured, the fact that he had the injury that could affect his athleticism and physicality. He was right there defensively. Now, I will say the Cavaliers are not the most outstanding offensive team, and they have a lot of things that are exploitable about them. Cleveland hangs their hat on the defensive end of the floor, and then they just kind of get by on offense. But regardless, Klay played some good defense, especially a couple of possessions on Darius Garland that were worthy of note. Outside of that, for the rest of the Warriors, I mean, they didn't shoot well. Neither of these teams shot well. Both scored under 100, and the Cavaliers scored only 82 points. But the game was won on the board, specifically the offensive glass, as Kevon Looney in 30 minutes had 18 rebounds. And of those 18 rebounds, 9 of them were offensive. They had 54 rebounds as a whole, and 22 of them were offensive. Meanwhile, the Cavaliers had, let's do math real quick, 42 rebounds, and 8 of them were offensive. So this game was really a matter of the rebounding. Steph had himself a fine game. Nothing outlandish for him, but nothing bad either, which at this point we're just hoping for not bad. Jordan Poole was all right off of the bench. That feels like a more natural role for him. Andre Iguodala had a handful of impressive assists. And yeah, that is about it. Draymond Green checked into the game at the start so he could be in the starting lineup when Klay Thompson got his return on the NBA court, but it was just so that he could actually see that, and then he immediately sat down because he had an injury. It's a symbolic thing, and I thought it was cute. Nemanja Bjelica took a bunch of bad contested threes at the top of the key. That was a little annoying. But yeah, overall good performance from the Warriors. It was mostly about just the return of Klay Thompson. And he looks like he's back to me. I don't want to speak too soon. And obviously he didn't have a great box score game, but I'm telling you, a couple of those shots he took just because for the sake of taking them. Where if he had been playing for 20 games, that's not a shot that he's going to take. A couple of fadeaway jump shots and one where he like spun in the post like 4 times and took it. Like, I really feel like he was just out there to put shots up and get comfortable, and he eventually did. And after starting the game like 1 for 5, he was pretty much all right efficiency-wise from there. I believe that he started off 1 for 5, and that would make him 6 for 13 after that, which is more reasonable. So yeah, I think Klay Thompson going to be fine. I think he's going to be right back to what he was defensively. I mean, it's not the most outstanding assignment, so I won't say for sure that that's there, and I won't say for sure about anything because it's one game. But I will say this game very, very encouraging. Real quick to talk about Cleveland side of things. As I mentioned, they lost the rebounding battle, which is weird for having Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, but just neither of them were particularly outstanding on the glass today. Really the only 2 standouts of this game, also Darius Garland played really poorly, but the 2 standouts are Rajon Rondo and Lamar Stevens. I do not know a lot about Lamar Stevens, so I can't really comment on, other than the fact that he wasn't much of a known player. He didn't play a lot, but he started today, and he had a lot of buckets that were just right place, right time. It wasn't as if he was creating a ton of his shots. There were a couple. There was one really nice spin move on Andre Iguodala in the paint. For a majority of his points, it was just being at the right place at the right time on the fast break to receive a dump-off pass, a cut, all that kind of stuff. But very good positioning. Ended up having 17 points and 8 for 11 from the field. So good on him for that. And then the Cavaliers actually made a bit of a run in the 4th quarter when it felt like the game was kind of put away. It was like a 20-point game with like 7 minutes or so left. I think that's the rough ballpark. But Rajon Rondo came in the game, and he actually started impacting things a lot. I never talked about the Rajon Rondo trade that happened. It was a seemingly insignificant one. But I also understood why the Cavs were doing it, because with Ricky Rubio out for the remainder of the season, when he was such a huge part of their bench production before, getting a point guard of a similar archetype for basically nothing, Denzel Valentine might as well be nothing, worthwhile. And he has been perfect for them. And in this game in particular, really good scoring game. They kept going under the screen on him on the 3-point shots. I think there were 2 different threes where they went under the screen. And hey, it's Rondo. I get it, but he went 3 for 3 from outside, had a couple of nice drives. I think one of those was an and one, couple of nice passes. Suddenly it's a 10-point game. But then both teams kind of just halt for a little bit, and the Warriors make a couple of nice plays. Kevin Looney gets a block, throws it up to Jordan Poole, he gets a layup in transition. Steph Curry pull up mid-range shot to put the nail on the coffin. But yeah, that's about it. But Rondo, really good performance. Lamar Stevens, really good performance. Evan Mobley had a couple of really awkward plays. That's the one thing that I'm worried about with Evan Mobley, is just a lot of his movement, especially offensively, is awkward, which is not automatically going to be a problem. Lonzo moves kind of awkward, and at this point it works. Blake Griffin is someone who always moved kind of awkward. Draymond Green moves really awkward. There's one player in particular I'm trying to think of. I don't know. Who am I trying to think of right now? There's one player that was my first example, and I said all those other ones, and then I forgot the main one. Anyways, moving awkwardly does not inherently mean that you're not going to be good or anything like that. Evan Mobley's already very good. He's already a borderline all-star player, but in terms of his offensive potential, Pascal Siakam, that was my main one. It's a little herky-jerky and awkward, but I said awkward like 15 fucking times there. But it's just something that I want to keep an eye on. I don't think it's going to hold him back necessarily, but anytime he has a bad game, that aspect of his game really starts to stand out to me. But anyways, I'm going to real quick talk about the Bulls game. As I mentioned, it's funny, my first post-game recap about the Bulls directly. My last video was about Kobe White, and that was a handful of games, but ultimately not anything specific to one game over another. The Mavs game, first loss of the last 10 games, and that's the one that I'm going to talk about. Ultimately, pretty simple reason why this game went the way it did. The Dallas Mavericks started off cold. The Bulls started off hot. Then second quarter comes around. It's a little bit more in favor of the Mavericks. The Bulls cooled down a little bit. And then for the rest of the game, the Mavericks were hot and the Bulls were cold. So Bulls were up 10 in the first quarter, and I think they got it to like a 14-point lead at some point in the second. The Mavericks ended up beating the quarter by 10 points. They won the third quarter by 5 points and won the fourth quarter by 10. Really good start for the Bulls. Very poor ending. Really poor start for the Mavericks. Really strong ending. Luka Doncic just tore the team apart, especially in the pick and roll. Got Vucevic slipping a couple of times, and Josh Green, who to this point has been nothing as a rookie, 18 points, just kind of similar to Lamar Stevens in the right place, right time phenomenon. Just happened multiple times and ended up working out, and it was pretty good performance overall. Maxi Kleber killed us from outside, kept leaving him open at the top of the key, and he kept banging those shots. But yeah, not much to say. I'm not going to be mad about it like I would be maybe if circumstances were different. But the Chicago Bulls currently have the best record in the Eastern Conference, and I believe, yes, they're one game away from the fourth best record, but the third best record in the game overall. So I don't really give a shit that they lost this game. It's one game. They've won their last 9. I'll let it go. All I will say is Alex Caruso's impact on the point of attack defense has been missed. Even though they've been winning in the streak, they've had some ugly wins in there. And having him back will be very nice. I believe he is in health and safety protocols right now after already having some sort of physical injury. So yeah, or I guess that would be physical too, but you know what I mean. Either way, don't really care. It's fine. I'm not losing sleep over this. The Chicago Bulls are still very, very good and way better than I expected, so no real room for me to complain, and that's me being the guy who complains about everything. So Klay Thompson's return was awesome. The Bulls lost, but I don't really care, and that is the end of the video. Goodbye.